There you all are, and how nice it is to see you all coming in and wanting to spend some time with us on our Six Screens programming tonight. We really do appreciate the people coming in, people calling in from pretty much all over the world. We get callers coming in from Sweden, and not just one, we get two of them. We got a man coming in, Matthew, from South Africa. We have many people, Maverick and Donnie, they come in from the United Kingdom. So we got an international program here. And what we all try to do here at the Six Screens is we try to really let the public know. We try to let the people leaving the Jehovah's Witness organization know. We hope to even be able to connect with the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves and let them realize how difficult it is being one of Jehovah's Witnesses and how evil the Watchtower organization is and what they do to people. So that's basically our mission here at the Six Screens Telenetwork. But we have a couple from South Carolina. Well, Dick and Constance Borghi, they're former Jehovah's Witnesses. They got a lot to talk about when it comes to their trek in the Watchtower. So let's bring them on right now and say hello to them. Let me just minimize my screen here. And there they are. Hello, Dick and Constance.
Hi
Hello,
there,
Rick. Hello, everybody.
Well, my goodness, we got a lot of people already coming in, Dick and Constance. Your program is gaining a lot of momentum. You're connecting. You're connecting. You two work really well together. You're connecting with the audience. I've been getting very favorable comments, and so I know they're listening in here tonight. They want to hear what you have to say. So I'll cut you loose and turn it over to you.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much, Rick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Connie and Dick show. We're absolutely thrilled to have you in our home and that we can talk to you. The beauty of Six Screens is that everybody has a voice. And not everybody can go to a psychologist and get therapy. You can get some really good therapy on the PTSD that's caused by the governing body and the things that they do and say. We know there's changes galore at the Watchtower. You know, they're changing the policy on beards and pants for women, but they're trying to ease up a little bit on the disfellowshipping only because it's costing them money in the world courts. People are looking at shunning as being extremely evil, and they're trying to let the governments think that, well, we're loosening up our grip. You know, it's not going to be bad. If someone's disfellowship, they can be reinstated in 3 months, which we know is that'll never happen. They're going to keep someone disfellowshipped out for at least a year, but they're putting it on paper that it's going to be 3 months. They're just a con job. These governing body members, in my opinion, are professional liars. They're deceivers. And every single one of them, again, in my opinion, is controlled by a demon. And that's why this organization is falling apart under all the lies and distortions and deceit that they have put out. They've ruined so many lives. In particular, they ruined the lives of families. They break up families left and right. A little story I want to tell the audience. Somebody told it to me. I want to relate it. Shows you how much money is important to the governing body. An Army Ranger is kind of the junior varsity of the Green Berets. They're tough guys. They're all paratroopers. They're someone that anyone who's a Ranger gets my respect anyway. Well, this Ranger got into a fight at a bar. I'm assuming, I don't know all the details, but he got in a fight with a Hell's Angel, and he beat the heck out of the Hell's Angel. And in the fight, the Hell's Angel lost a wristwatch. Well, the soldier picked up the watch and said, "Spoils of war." And he put the watch in his pocket and went off. Do you think that Hell's Angel went to the cops and said, I get beat up by an Army Ranger and he stole my watch? Do you think he did that? Well, of course not. He's an outlaw biker, and they don't go to the cops. They just don't. Here's Jehovah's Witnesses, the governing body, telling people for years the governments are run by Satan the devil. You're not supposed to vote. You're not supposed to be interested in politics. Nothing, because it's controlled by Satan the devil. So now they go to the courts and they bow on one knee and say, please give us your money. Please give us your money. And what did C.T. Russell said? He was a whack job for sure, but he had the right idea about one thing. He said if the Jehovah's Witnesses or the governing body had to beg for money, that would be a very definite sign that the organization is not being blessed by God. They're out there begging for money, or when the money's taken away by the Norwegian courts, then of course we know they rescinded that, and now I think this week or next week for sure we'll find out for sure if the Norwegian court is going to allow the witnesses to have their money.
Yeah, the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court. But here they are begging the governments for money. And they're going to try to tell people, well, it's for our door-to-door work or the worldwide witnessing. No, it's not. Pioneers don't get paid. The people that work in Bethel get a small, I don't know what it is, $100 a month. A stipend, yeah, a couple hundreds a month.
Yeah, not
They're not getting any money.
Yeah.
So where's all the money going? In real estate. That's where it's going. And they're buying stocks and bonds. And they're buying stocks from the military industrial complex. They're scoffing up on all that stuff. That's where your contributions are going. And also, I mean, don't leave the governing body out. They need to drive their $500,000 Bentleys and their expensive Range Rover. Sorry.
Yeah.
I heard they bought one of those. And they've got a fleet of airplanes. So they're living high, but the rank and file, they're going to squeeze them for every penny. Even if you have airline mileage, they want it. Donate it. You got jewelry, donate it. You got a home, oh, for sure, donate that. Everything for the worldwide witnessing work, which doesn't really need a whole lot of funding because there's nothing they have to spend. Even if they produce Watchtower and Awake magazines, you're supposed to ask for a contribution, or if it's a book, a contribution. Okay, folks, and we know there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today, stuff in the Middle East. I'm sure from every JW pulpit, we're in the last days. You can see what's happening over there in the Middle East. I'm sure they're selling that. But what's happening with the Watchtower is they're imploding. They're going down. I would suggest anybody to look on Six Screens and also look on to YouTube, and you will find wonderful content that really breaks the backs of the Watchtower, because you can see how they operate. For years, we couldn't see. I think the beauty of Six Screens is that you can vent, you can say what's on your mind, and it's cathartic. Just giving the stress off of you that the Watchtower puts you under, being fearful of Armageddon and being fearful of doing any little thing wrong, and then you're going to be disfellowshipped. Fearful of, if you question stuff, if you go to the Watchtower, if you go to any elder and you say, you know what, I really think Jesus did die on a crucifix. That's it. You're disfellowshipped.
Or I don't think he's an archangel.
Yeah, whatever.
Right.
You're gone.
Remember, Rich, the scripture talked about pay Caesar's things to Caesar and God's things to God. You know, we heard that scripture so many times. And yet it's so interesting how Watchtower puts on this facade that that's what they do, right? But then yet when it comes to the court system, when it comes to the situation in Norway, and they've gone all the way up to the Supreme Court because they want the money, the annual money, right, $1.5 million each year from Norway. What's interesting is they're going after the money, but then yet we were always taught it's Satan's system of things, right? The governments, and stay separate from the world, stay separate from the governments, don't salute any flag, because of God's kingdom, don't participate in voting or any of that. But then yet when it comes to Watchtower and their bottom line dollar, that doesn't even apply, because now they're going after, Norway had said, no, you're not getting the money. And Watchtower was not happy with that. So they're going above them, going to the Supreme Court, because they want the money. They want the donations. So isn't that very, very interesting? And yet none of us could participate in, quote unquote, Satan's government, right? We couldn't participate in war or, you being in the military or saluting the flag or voting or anything of that nature. We had to stay completely neutral. And so yet Watchtower, they have no problem with going after Satan's system of things for the money. Isn't that ironic? It's very
It is.
hypocritical.
And it's ironic that they should hire attorneys from Norway that are not Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah,
You're
that
not
one's
supposed
not.
to go to the world
That's
for
right.
anything,
That's a good point.
They're,
Yeah, and he's the one that's lying for Watchtower.
I'm glad you
You
brought
know?
up. I'm glad you brought up the lying, because
Yeah.
I find it remarkable that an organization would, under oath, put their hand on the Bible. Don't
Right.
forget, these lawyers, even if they aren't Jehovah's Witnesses, they represent the governing body, so they're representatives. They put their hand on the Bible and they bold-facedly lie. What's remarkable about that, lying under oath, is nothing new.
Oh, that's perjury. It's very serious.
But what is remarkable about it is that you can check the record and you
Right.
can see
Right.
that they're lying. They're trying to tell the Norwegian court that shunning isn't something that Jehovah's Witnesses do.
They
And
said it came from the apostates.
yeah, the apostates made it
Right.
up.
And if anyone's been in this organization, they know that's not true at all.
That's right. You can be disfellowship for talking to a disfellowship person. I have two sons that haven't talked to me in decades, and they're shunning me.
Call it lying, call it whatever you want. It's false information that they're saying in the court of law to the Norwegian Supreme Court. So, but that attorney on the other side, boy, she's pretty sharp.
Yep.
She's very, very sharp, and she has a copy of Watchtower's video with that young girl, Stephanie, I believe was her name, where her parents shunned her. And Watchtower took that video down because they didn't want to be incriminated. But, it was Watchtower's video, and it's still, people have it, and they gave it to the Norwegian Supreme Court. So that's one issue. Plus, you have the elders shepherd of the flock book as well.
Yeah.
So, Watchtower can say whatever they want with this attorney who's representing them under oath. And yet for any of us who were witnesses or witnesses who might be listening, you know what is truthful and you know what is not truthful.
Yeah, for sure. They disfellowshipped or removed Anthony Morris, right? And what they've done is they've taken down every video that he's ever done.
Right.
They just whitewashed it. He doesn't even exist anymore, right?
That's pretty strong statement.
Yeah, they did the
say?
same thing with
Yeah.
all the literature. I think is from 85, going back to C.T. Russell's time, because that literature contains stuff like 1975
Oh, yeah.
will definitely bring the end of this 6,000 years, and it's going to end in October 75, and Armageddon's going to come. And boy, a lot of us, I believed it.
Well, we lived it. Rich
we
and I
lived
lived
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's
we
our
lived it. We
generation.
believed
We lived it.
75 was,
We
that was
lived
it.
It's not like we just heard about it. It's not like the new younger generations are, many of them are not aware of it. We literally lived it. We did. We lived it. And then after it came and went, it was like, it was scooted under the rug, right, Rich? Scoot, scoot, scoot under the rug, and nothing was said or done about it, right? No apologies, nothing. So many people's lives were on hold for many, many years.
It's just amazing to me how an organization that called itself The Truth is nothing but lies. They will tell a lie when a truth would do just as well, because that's who they are. The father of the lie is Satan, the devil.
Yep.
And every one of those governing body members, in my opinion, is demon inspired. And that organization is totally corrupt, and there's oceans and oceans and oceans of information out there now that a lot of us didn't have
Oh,
20
no.
or 30 years ago.
No, not at
No.
all. And you cannot have pedophiles in the congregation that are not being, I mean, in other words, there's pedophiles in the organization, in the congregations, in the organization, and they're covered up. You
Yeah.
know, it'd be one thing if this organization came forward and said, okay, well, the elders, we have a pedophile or pedophiles in our congregation, and we're going to address this, but we're going to report it to the authorities, right? No, when you start covering it up to the congregation, because your loyalty to a corporation or an institution like Watchtower is more important, their image is more important than the protection of families and children.
Mhm.
Something is very, very seriously wrong. The attorney, I'm originally from California, Zolkin.
Zalkin Law Firm,
Yeah, Zolkin.
Mhm.
And he's down in San Diego. Erwin Zolkin.
I believe so.
Yeah, Zalkin. And he said in a video, you can watch it online, he said, you know, he started off with the Catholic Church, meaning he started representing the victims who were victimized by the priests and the bishops and all that in the Catholic Church. And guess what? He won. I mean, that's how successful he was. But he said in his video, he said, the Jehovah's Witnesses, their organization is so much worse as far as the pedophilia in the Watchtower organization than it is with the Catholic Church. Now that speaks volumes, because the Catholic Church
Mhm.
is huge. What's it? Something like 2 billion people, Rich? It's extraordinary. They're very powerful. They're very rich. They're wealthier than Watchtower. But the point here that you want to learn is he's the attorney who represented the victims of Catholicism, of the priests who were pedophiles.
Mhm.
And he said that when it came to Watchtower's situation of pedophilia is so much more worse on a grander scale. And not only is that the case, but Watchtower, will not turn over their database. Will not. They're hiding their information, and they were charged $4,000 a day, which is millions of dollars. But Watchtower has a lot to hide. And so you would think, well, why is that the case? Well, probably because if people found out exactly where the pedophiles were, who they are, and how many, and maybe, as far as the hierarchy is concerned, I think people would probably be absolutely appalled. They'd be shocked.
It's alleged, and I don't want to use that word alleged because
Yeah, that's
none
important.
of this is proven.
Yep.
But there was a video that I was watching on YouTube that alleges that Stephen Lett is a pedophile, that Schroeder was a pedophile. I know for sure that Greensleeves, these are all governing body members, the former governing body members,
Mhm.
Greensleeves and
And
Chitty
Chitty Bang Bang. Think of it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
Bang Bang
That's
is
how I
right.
remember his name. Chitty.
You
He
know,
has a name like Chitty.
Governing body people
Yeah.
were
Ted
themselves
Jarrett's.
Ted
Jarrett's,
Jarrett's.
Rich, is the one you're thinking.
That's right.
Ted
Jarrett's.
Jarrett's. He was the one that was over in Australia that Barbara had mentioned, Barbara Anderson.
Yeah,
He was like a branch overseer, and then he was
Right.
removed. And he is the one, if I'm not mistaken, I'm
to
like,
witness rule.
he's the one that set up the 2 witness rule. Now, just think about it.
Mhm,
If you wanted to be a pedophile
mhm.
and you wanted a cover up, what a great cover up. Set up a 2 witness rule. It's not Bible based. It's not Bible based. Watchtower uses it as their rule book. But then when it came to the Old Testament, if a woman was raped, that situation in the Old Testament, she was raped out in the field, okay?
Mhm.
And she presented it to whomever, that man who raped her out in the field was put to death. And there were no 2 witnesses. Remember that?
That's right.
But the thing is, technically, you can say, well, there were 2 witnesses because God saw that. But as far as the Old Covenant was concerned, there was just the victim and there was the perpetrator, and
Yeah.
he was put to death. So that being said, right?
Mhm.
What gives Watchtower the right to say you need to have 2 witnesses if a child is raped? Rape is rape. Doesn't matter the age. So anyway, that's something for people to really think about.
I have a quote here
Mm.
from the JW's attorney in Norway about shunning. Here's the quote.
Okay.
Shunning is not a concept JWs accept. It comes from the apostates. Well, isn't that's news to me?
And we've been apostates for a long time.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, if I were to tell a lie, say I wanted to elevate myself as an athlete. So I might say, you know, when I was in the Little League, I hit 2 home runs in a game. Well, you might believe that. But if I said I hit 2 home runs in the 7th game of the World Series when I played for the Boston Red Sox, you know, people, if they didn't know it was true or not, they could easily check on it,
That's
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Check the
Just for the
stats.
record, I never hit 2 home runs in the Little League either. But,
But you can check the stats.
but you can
That's
check the
thing.
stats.
Right.
Yeah, you get that right.
So what about having a guilty conscience for lying, right? I mean, you know, that's what your conscience is all about, is to
just lie.
to
and
have,
lie.
you know, what's right and wrong. And then you're going to go in a court of law and say things like that.
They actually told the magistrates, or whatever they call them in
Norway.
Norway,
Mhm.
they said, you know, shunning doesn't break. We don't shun youngsters. We don't kick them out of the house. And you know, they played that video, you know, of that young
Stephanie.
girl, Stephanie.
Yeah.
They played, and you know, the mother and father. We're not going to talk. If you go, I was disfellowshipped, as probably everybody knows, in 1990 for sins that were committed in the 80s that I confessed to.
Mm.
And I thought for a time, you know, I'd like to get back into the organization. I never knew that there was at least a 1 year waiting period. I never knew
Most
that.
people don't know that, Rich.
Since I'd never been, I was only disfellowshipped once and
Right. Well,
only
how
once.
would you know?
I didn't even know I was supposed to write a letter to the elders.
Right. How would
You
you know? Right.
Nobody told me.
Right.
So I was going to go to all the meetings and be a good little doobie, JW, and kiss the butts of the elders that disfellowship me and play all nice for only one reason. I wanted to get my family back.
Right.
Okay. But I wasn't coming back to Jehovah, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what the elders wanted. I knew what to say. I knew how to play the game. I was going to play I could only play the game for 5 or 6 months. And I just said, you know, that's it. My good friend, Kenny Nadro, who was a former elder in the congregation, said, they're not going to let you back in because you caused too much of a problem.
Yeah. Tell the story, Rich. This is really good.
Well, I get
It's a very
swindled.
good
I get
story.
swindled out of $40,000.
Mm.
I had a brother-in-law who was a Jehovah's Witness. He said, if you give me $40,000, I'll start a business and you can work with me. So that was the agreement. He said all the money was going to go into the business. He put out, as soon as he got the money, he bought a house and then filed bankruptcy and left me hanging with the 40,000.
So you had a mortgage already and a
Yeah.
wife and 2 kids to support. Now you're carrying a second mortgage.
Right.
Because he was a baptized brother who really screwed you over financially.
So I went to their elders and then they threw the second step of Matthew out the window.
Matthew 18.
Matthew 18, they threw it right out the window.
Mhm.
And when I was pleading my case to these elders, they were acting like they were the defense attorney for George and Sandy McDonald, who cheated me out of $40,000.
His in-laws,
My in-laws, my former wife's brother.
brother and wife. Mhm.
Yeah, I forget where I was going this.
Well, you were just talking about the situation and the brothers coming back into the organization.
Yeah, coming back.
And you did it for the children, your
Right.
kids.
I didn't want to come back to
Jehovah, you
to
said.
Jehovah. I didn't want to come back to knock on. It's coercion. They
It
coerce
is.
you into doing stuff,
Yeah.
you know, that you don't want to do. Did I want to go knocking on doors? Maybe initially, prior to 1975, you know, I thought, well, I want to live forever on paradise earth.
Mhm.
And one of the really requirements is you got to go the door-to-door ministry.
Mhm.
It is a requirement.
Oh, yeah, it's mandatory.
Yeah, you just have to. They make you. But I didn't mind doing that.
Mhm.
But after 1975 came and went, and nobody was talking to me about it
Or any of us,
or
Rich.
any of us, it's like, well, what happened to
Right.
It was supposed to be the #1 event in the world.
Hmm.
It would dwarf the floods, the world wars, the Black Plague,
Everything.
everything.
Hmm.
Everything would be small compared to Armageddon.
Right.
And then it then comes, nobody's even talking about it. It blew my mind.
Oh, yeah, big time. Well,
Yeah.
what, 250,000 JWs left?
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But the only reason I was stupid enough to confess adultery to elders. If you commit any kind of sin, you take it to Jesus. And one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses don't want you to do, they don't want you to take things to Jesus. They want you to take everything to Jehovah. And
Through the elders.
Through the elders.
Through
Yeah,
the elders.
all your sin. Elders can't forgive sins. They would like you to think that they could.
Well,
but
they think
can't.
that they can read your heart to know when you're repentant enough.
Yeah.
And yet they don't have that capability, Rich. And now they even say, the organization says, we're not infallible or inspired.
Yeah. They're not inspired.
So if you're not inspired by God's Holy Spirit and you're not infallible, which means you make mistakes, then why in the heck are millions of people putting their trust in a man-made organization, which is a corporation? It's really a real estate empire, all in the disguise of a religion, and it has duped a lot of people. But when people are waking up to realize, wow, all these false prophecies came and went, you put your life on hold. I mean, we weren't even supposed to get old. Remember that,
Yeah,
Rich?
that's right.
We're in our 70s now. So we weren't, and we were, I was 16 when I started studying, 17 when I got baptized, left when I was 28. So I've been out many, many years, and Rich has been out many years too. But, the organization now, apparently you don't hear so much about the end of the system. They're not talking about that. It's a whole new dynamics. They're just not even discussing that, Rich. I don't even know why people are in.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. They're not even talking about paradise.
I'm watching a video on YouTube. It's Stephen Lett, old rubber face himself, right?
Yeah.
He's out there. We're living in the last minutes of the last seconds of the last days, and the last on and on. That it's coming tomorrow. Then you got another guy, that Wiener guy. He comes on.
Jeffrey Winger.
Yeah,
sounds like Wiener, but it's
he
W-I-N-G.
looks like a wiener.
W-I-N-G-E-R, Winger, but it is easy to say Wiener. Yeah.
And he comes on, and he's telling us that we're not inspired. Sometimes we get it a little
He
wrong.
goes like this,
Yeah.
Rich.
Yeah,
With the dark eyebrows.
yeah. And then he comes out and says, Armageddon might not come in our lifetime. Wait a minute. In 1970, my sister was plugging my ear. I was 71.
Yeah.
We're the last seconds. It might come next week. Armageddon's going to be here. It's going to be so terrible that no flesh will survive.
Well, now, can you imagine what the witnesses are saying now with regards to the situation in Iran that took place?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're going
my
crazy.
gosh. Watchtower will never give up an opportunity for a disaster to say it's the last days. That's for sure.
That keeps them in.
It keeps them in. That's what it is.
That
It's all
keeps them in.
about fear and control.
And they're going to suggest to you every chance that they have, they need money.
Oh, yeah, big time.
They must hate the 6 screens, and they must hate some of the YouTubers, because they're out there. They made over $1 billion in the sale in Brooklyn. What are you doing with
$2 billion.
Well, it could be even more.
Yeah, $2 billion.
Oh, what are you doing with a hedge fund? I mean, why aren't you giving that money to people that will volunteer
At Bethel.
At Bethel,
or special pioneers, or regular
at least
pioneers.
pay for their
Rich.
gas.
Something.
Right? Gas is expensive. You go to pioneering for a day. You drive if you live in a big city,
or rural.
You're driving all over the place,
yeah,
right? And you spend $20 on gas like nothing. Matter of fact, if you live in California, you'd be paying $8 for a gallon of gas.
We were just talking to our friend Mary, and we hope she's listening. We love you, Mary. I'm almost sure you're listening. And California, they got 2 refineries going out. One left in Phillips 66 in Southern Cal, and then Valero is leaving actually February, March. Anyway, in what's the name of the town? Benicia. And so California used to have 40 refineries. Now they're down to 7. And the price of gas in Southern California is $7 and some change. And it will be going up most likely to $12 a gallon by the end of the year. So any of you who are Californians, my heart goes out to you. But it's very, very expensive. And there's 40 million people in California. So, rich people going door to door and spending their gas and all that for witnesses. I hope they really, really wake up.
There's a statement that truth is never afraid of scrutiny, never afraid of light.
Right.
Okay. All the Watchtower does is hide stuff. Hide. They hide pedophiles. They hide their money. All their money is in a shell game. Where's the money? They get 100 different LLCs out there. They've got a hedge fund in Ireland. They have cigarettes all over the place. They have money. I know there was a Watchtower courier that was caught going over the border into Canada with a large bunch of money, maybe 100,000. I don't know, maybe more
Long
than that. Some time ago. And you're always doing stuff like that. They will always tell you they're broke. We didn't get enough money to cover our expenses.
Oh, at all the assemblies?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're so secretive too, Rich. I mean, people have a right to know where their money is going. It's like a dark black hole. Sort of like California. Where's all the money going? Why are they in so much debt, right? All the money for the homeless or the train that never took off there. Where's all that money going? I mean, all the contributions the brothers and sisters have made. I used to wonder when I was a JW, we'd have the big conventions, as you know, in the summer in California. And they'd bring in a lot of money, but I wasn't really so much in tune with it. I was a teenager. And I know the majority of us thought, oh, we can't wait for the convention because, there'll be a new book. That was it.
Yeah.
Remember that, Rich? The new release. That's what everybody, that was like the carrot that brought everybody in to look forward to the conventions. Well, as you get older and you get wiser, you realize it's more than that. Now they don't even have books to release, right? So my point is this. My point is, what was the purpose of the conventions? I don't care if it was the 2 circuit assemblies or the district convention, or sometimes they were international, but there were 3 conventions a year. And I'm sure there are today. But the point is, it was to bring in donations. It was to bring in money. That was the whole purpose of the conventions. And Rich, when I found that out, I was pretty ticked off about that.
Oh, yeah.
Because people work really, really hard for their money. And Rich and I both came from Catholicism, and we know what that was like. Sometimes they'd have the basket when we were children, they'd have the basket go around, if not once, sometimes twice, depending on the congregation or the church you attended in the Catholic faith. But, with the witnesses, one thing I really liked is that there was the contribution box. There was a little brown box in the back. And if you wanted to leave a contribution, you can. It was no big deal. It was just very, private. It wasn't like you had to come to the front of the platform or the stage or the altar, whatever the church would call itself. But anyway, yeah. And, but no, nowadays they even have ATM machines at the conventions.
Yeah, they used to dock the Catholics for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's well, it generates revenue, so let's put the ATMs in.
Can you believe that? And then they got that game. They always say, like on a Sunday, oh, brothers and sisters, the accounts representative. Oh, we're short, right? We're short with regards to the money. That was just bogus. That was absolutely bogus. There's some families that are just really, really struggling trying to make it. And then what? They need to be, feeling financially coerced and pressured to be able to give more when they really don't have more. It's between a donation or maybe buying food or medication. That's not right. That's not right. That's someone who's a beggar. That's how I looked at it, Rich.
No, absolutely.
Beggar.
Absolutely. I mean, it is so corrupt that they would have you believe that because they have a donation box in the back,
Yeah.
and they're not putting a basket in front of your face or
Right.
something like that,
Right.
that, they're not coercing you. You can't read a Watchtower Weight magazine without them, letters to the Watchtower,
Mm-hmm.
questions from the readers.
Mm-hmm.
Brothers, I want to give me and my husband, we're in our 80s now, and our kids are out pioneering and doing wonderful things for the society. How can I give my house and my cars to the Watchtower, my jewelry?
You don't think that was not planned?
That was,
Come
the
on.
Watchtower wrote it.
That's so bogus.
You know,
Right. So everybody's supposed to follow that example. Right?
they're suggesting to everybody, look, um, you're in your 80s, you owned your home, you bought the home brand new for $5,000, and now it's worth $500,000 because you've been living in the house for 60 years.
It's all paid off.
It's all paid
You
off.
paid all the taxes. You
Yeah.
want to leave it to your kids. Oh no, Watchtower wants you to turn that deed over to them.
Yeah.
Forget your kids, and especially forget your kids if they were disfellowshipped.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they don't even deserve it, right?
Yeah.
They don't even deserve it. They've been your kids your whole life, but because you're disfellowshipped, they're going to throw you under the bus. Oh, give it to Watchtower. Watchtower deserves it. Your kids left Jehovah.
Yeah. It's for that little black hole called worldwide witnessing work.
And then yet they're using that money to pay for I'm sorry, honey.
Yeah.
Just have
It's
some-
the pedophiles.
the pedophiles.
Yeah.
Okay, wake up, people. They are using that money to cover up pedophiles for all the court cases that they're losing their butts on. Okay, you don't know it, but you do now.
Yeah. They didn't want you to know that. That's
No.
why anytime there's a
Keep that
settlement,
dirty secret
right?
quiet, right?
you sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah, or a gag order,
So here's $100,000,
Yeah.
but you can't tell anybody
right?
because they don't want,
Because it's all about image. Oh, God forbid.
They're supposed to be so transparent
Oh,
and
their
so
image.
honest. I mean, you can't ask the Watchtower, well, how much money did you bring in last year?
Oh, no.
None of your business.
Right.
How dare you for even asking?
Right.
I
You'd
read,
be a fool for not asking, right? You give your
Well,
whole life to this
yeah, well,
organization.
you just have to trust in Jehovah. Jehovah's leading this organization. I ride with a group called Rolling Thunder. It's kind of a motorcycle thing with veterans.
Mhm.
And we collect money. We have different ways of getting money. Every single meeting, there to the penny, there's a discussion on how much money came in and how much money went out.
That's great.
And anyone who wants a copy of anything from us, I was on the governing, anyway, I was on the board of directors. Anyone who wanted information to the penny, we bring them off a copy and give them
That's the way
an
it should
accounts
be.
report.
That's the way it should be,
Try
Reg.
try doing that
With
with the
Watchtower.
Watchtower.
Wouldn't
doing
it be
that.
amazing if Rick could somehow have somebody who's, CFO, Chief
Yeah.
Financial Officer for Watchtower, or somebody really close to the CFO who really knows the numbers on Watchtower, if he would, come out and expose that on the show. I would love that. I think it would blow people's socks off if they knew how much money came in and where the money's going, Rich.
No, absolutely.
Really, people have a right to know that.
Okay, folks, we've been yakking at you for a
For-
little more than a half hour. Hit *6 if you want to comment on some of the things that you picked up on that's hypocritical in the Watchtower. And if you want to talk about what's happening in the Middle East, feel free. *6.
Rick and Constance. This
Yeah.
is Donald here from Texas.
Hi,
Hi,
Donald.
Donald.
Hi, how y'all doing?
Good.
Good. How are you tonight?
Very, very good. Just been busy working on the computer today, doing a lot of writing and stuff.
Good.
This whole
Well, thank you
thing
for coming on our show tonight.
So thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Yeah, this whole thing about the money and everything. The reason why they don't give it out there, the reason why they don't explain everything, is because if they did explain where their money went, then the witnesses would truthfully know that they're not God's organization. Because
That's right.
in all that
It's true.
they're getting money from war, companies that make war equipment. They're
Yeah.
getting money from all kinds of evil sources,
Mhm.
or at least sources that they call evil to the Watchtower population. they call it equal, but then they're going behind the scenes and getting money from it. You know, if they let all that loose, then nobody would be a Jehovah's Witness anymore because it would expose everything they do, and it would show, you know, where they're getting their money from. Because if you think about it, if Armageddon is really so close, what's the purpose of all that money? If Armageddon is going to happen the way they say it is,
Yeah.
the planet is going to be in such ruins. You're going to have nuclear waste, biochemical waste. People are going to be dying right and left. Government will be gone. Transportation will be gone. Money will be totally useless.
Useless, right?
And life on Earth as it is now will be a distant memory. And so, what's the purpose of them getting all this money? I mean, the only thing I can think of is that, like you said about the child sex abuse cases, they're paying for that. But I also believe they're making money for themselves. They are getting wealthy. They are wealthy already, and they're just getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter.
At the expense of all the brothers and sisters, who many of them are in poverty or barely making it.
You know, Don, you bring up a good point. I saw a movie fairly recently where this gang of guys robbed a bank and they got a lot of money.
Is this a true story?
This is a true story.
Okay. I don't know if it's a true story or a joke. Okay.
It was, I'm making it up. All right.
Yeah, right.
All right. Anyway, they rob a bank and they get $1 million. So they all agree that they're going to sit on the money for a while till the heat dies down, so that they wouldn't be a suspect. So 4 of the guys, they live, 1-bedroom apartment. They're driving a junky old Chevy, and they're just keeping their money buried.
Yeah.
This other guy says, "Hey, I'm going to go out and buy a Cadillac convertible
Oh boy.
and buy a big house and so forth."
Be flashy about it,
Yeah.
huh? Oh,
And the
boy.
other guys they want to kill him because he is, he's going to
Blow the
get
cover.
caught by the cops.
Yeah, he's
And the
blowing
cops
the
are
cover.
gonna
Come after all of them.
sweat him, and he's gonna rat on the other guys.
Right.
That's always how it goes.
Yeah.
That's always how it goes. So what the Watchtower is doing is that they're hiding the money, because if rank and file knew what they would, I mean, you get Jeffrey Jackson driving a $500,000 Bentley. He also has a car called the Demon. And a Hellcat. I mean, these are high-powered 800 horsepower cars.
Rich knows a lot about cars. He's very fast.
It's very, very fast.
Yeah.
Very fast car.
Yeah.
And I guess he had to rush back to his return visits or whatever. But yeah, they do it in front of your face. I mean, Stephen Lett is up there giving a talk. He's holding a microphone, and he's got a big Mormon ring on. I don't mean Mormon.
No, Masonic.
Masonic
You
ring.
got the M right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Masonic.
He got the Masonic
Temple.
ring on.
Mhm.
He's a Mason.
Mhm.
He and all the other governing body members know it.
Mhm.
It's in your face, and they don't care. They put
But
watch.
you know what, though? But they're making all this money, but there again, if Armageddon happens,
Right. What
that
good is it? Right? They don't. I don't think they believe it. I don't think they believe it. Because why would you need Ramapo? Why do you need all the donations to build Ramapo if the end of the system is coming?
Yeah, they won't complete Ramapo for another 10 years. And then you got Stephen Lett. We're in the last seconds of the last second of the last minute.
Yeah, and he's investing in a lot of real estate too. We had a show on that with regards to how much in Alabama, his parents invested in a lot of real estate. They were realtors. And go do the research on Stephen Lett. He and his brother, they invest in real estate and they turn it over and make a profit. But they're not going to tell you that, right?
Well,
On jw.org.
There's
what y'all said earlier. The person you were talking about being disfellowshipped, that's not Stephanie, that's Sonia Erickson.
The one that was disfellowshipped on the video?
Yeah, that video, the Sonia Erickson video, yeah.
The young girl, the teenager. Okay, Sonia. Yeah.
Yeah, Sonia Erickson, yeah.
She played that part really well. Boy, did she ever. The look on her face. Yep. Okay.
Hello, Dick.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, Connie. Dick, this is Craig from Florida.
Hi,
Hey, Greg, how are you? Good to see
How are
you. Hear from you again.
Great. Love you both.
We
Thank
love
you.
you too,
I
honey.
wanted to
We
share a
really do.
story
Mhm.
real quick. I was in the organization for 35 years. I disassociated in 2000.
Good for
And
you.
before I disassociated, a
Mhm.
couple of years before, I was working door to door with a circuit overseer, which is sort of a high position in the organization, as you know, or the listeners know.
Oh, yeah.
And in the course of door to door, he was telling me a story, and I'll never forget it. And this is when my faith was sort of having questions or doubt. He was telling me how at times the governing body has to bribe foreign officials so that they can allow the preaching work to take place. So, because we're talking about the use of monies in the organization, that disturbed me that day, and henceforth, how bribery has to take place, and that's where my funds are going. I'll never ever forget that moment.
Wow, that's a very powerful statement, especially coming from a CO.
Yes, I remember it clearly. I'm not making this up or whatever, but I don't remember how the conversation started. But he says at certain countries, the governing body has to bribe foreign officials. That's illegal to bribe government officials.
It's illegal, immoral.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
Well, it just goes to show you how they are not Christians, because Christians do not do
No.
that kind of behavior. That's for sure. They just sweep it under the carpet so people don't know.
I'm enjoying, as always, tonight's segment. Love you both for what you do.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Craig.
you.
We love you too. Thank you, honey. Yep.
And for who you are. You're true people.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah. Thank you,
Appreciate it.
sweetheart.
I'll continue listening. Bye-bye.
Okay, honey. Thank you.
Many, many years ago, I think about me 15 years ago, Rick was riding in my car. He said, Dick, he said,
Praise true people.
What's that, Pixie?
I said that was probably just on the tip of his tongue, but he said something profound. I love the phrase true people. Let's have that as a new phrase.
That's cute.
oh, thank
He
you.
called us. Oh,
Thank you.
That was sweet. Thank you, Pixie.
Yeah, the thought I was,
No, but that's what he noted, and I'm like, okay, you could be a true Christian, you could be a true Buddhist. Let's just be true people.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Nice thought. Yeah, we got to meet Craig at the convention in August.
he took us to dinner. Thank you,
It was
Craig.
a real honor to meet him. We'd
Yeah.
like to invite him to our place. He knows that too. Yeah, it was a real honor to meet him.
Yeah, good guy.
Real good guy. He's true also. He's a true person also. I mean, it comes to, as you go through life, you get to a point where you're either going to be true and authentic to yourself, or you're going to be, an actor. And you just don't want to go through life living at the expectations of other people and being completely unhappy yourself. I remember I've worked at a lot of places. I've worked 50 years full time, so I have a lot of diverse experience. But I worked at one place was Genentech, which is a biotech firm in South San Francisco. You work with a lot of scientists and doctors, and they're working on drugs to get them passed by the FDA. It takes 10 years. Anyway, it's a different group of people. The point I'm trying to make is there was this one physician, he's an MD that I worked for, and he was Japanese, really nice guy. I was on a temporary assignment at this time. And anyway, he became a medical doctor. If you know anything about medicine, those classes are really, really tough. Mary could tell you that. She's on the line. Her father was a thoracic surgeon in New York City. And anyway, so this physician had said, I'll never forget it. He said, of course, I'm Japanese. I went through medical school, passed all the exams, became a medical doctor just to please my parents. He said, I really did not want to become a medical doctor, a physician, but I did it just to please my parents. And I will never, I've shared that experience with you, Rich.
Mhm.
And I will never, I mean, you're talking about like 12, maybe 14, 15, 16 years of experience. I mean, of education. And he did it just to please his parents. And yet, you know, I know he was making a great salary, but deep down inside, was he really happy with himself and his life, you know? So why do I bring that up? You know, with Watchtower, you know, you get involved and you're involved for a lifetime. It doesn't matter what age you get baptized. It's a lifetime commitment. And many people are learning to wake up, like what we're saying and Rick is saying and so forth. And many people are waking up. But it's very challenging when you have families who are in and you're awake and maybe your wife is not, or vice versa.
Mhm.
And you're a PMO, you're physically in, mentally out, but you're going through all the motions. You know, I read it on Reddit. You're going to all the meetings, you know, you're going through all the steps, right? You're going out in service, you're doing everything. But deep down inside your heart, you know it's not true. And the reason why you're doing this is because you don't want to lose your family. That's a very, very difficult time and situation in your life, and we totally understand that. But you know, just try to do the very best you can in trying to have uh, a successful escape. And of course, you know, we want you to be able to have your wife and family. That's very, very important. But the point I'm trying to also say is it's very difficult to go through life year after year after year after year, living up to somebody's expectations when your heart is really not in it, right? Maybe being married to the wrong person.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, what else could it be? You gave up a college education. You saw all your friends pass you by at the class reunions and they're very successful and you feel like a total flunky, right? I mean, I'm just talking about those kinds of things, being a JW and you really don't want to be a JW, all those kinds of things. You know, you just, this life is not a dress rehearsal. It just is not. I mean, I just turned 71 2 days ago, and it's so hard to believe. You know, I'm 71. I said to Rich this morning, wow, time is flying by. And it does. And you can't ever take the clock and go backwards. You just can't. So, you know, people,
You probably haven't met very many. Happy birthday.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Dick, I
you.
wanted to ask a question.
Thank you. Yeah.
Now, were you, I got to keep up on this. Were you in the military, Dick, at one time?
Yes.
And what motivated you? Was it the draft or patriotism? I mean, before I tell you my comment, I want to know this.
Well, for me, I was born in 48 and the draft stopped in 71, I believe.
Yep.
So when I graduated from high school in 1967,
72.
yeah, I had the draft to look at, but
Yeah.
I had wanted to be a U.S. Marine since I was like 6 years old. When the neighbor across the street came back from Korea, and he had that Marine Corps uniform on, he had the medals, he had the sword, the whole bit, and I was super impressed with that. And everybody, you know, talked about him as being a really special guy. He was a big high school quarterback, and he was and I wanted to be that. And I figured if I could be a Marine Corps sergeant, that would be the best thing that could happen to me. And it actually did happen. And the reason I didn't stay in the Marine Corps was because Armageddon was coming, and my sister convinced me.
Yeah.
My sister convinced me. There's somebody talking on the line. It's
Quarterback guy survive. Did the high school quarterback guy survive?
Did the
yeah, he did. Yeah, he served in Korea and got a bunch of medals. And I wanted to be
just
him.
like him. Yeah.
So as soon as I graduated from high school, there was no question about it. I was going into the Marines.
Okay. Well, my comment was basically, and I've told my relatives, I'm the first generation I could say no to military service.
Okay.
And I did, because the draft was over. But
He's my
it
age.
was a hard road.
Mhm.
No, what do you call it? What do they give you? College education?
Yeah, they
GI Bill. Listen, it was incredibly hard. be no one who went in the military. Everybody went in the military. They
Right.
gave you a hand up.
It's our generation.
It was terrible.
Yep.
Then I come in the Watchtower and I realize half the elders are ex-military.
Oh, interesting.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I could talk about that, but I'm not going to belabor it. The fact is, the Watchtower actually was drawing in a lot of ex-military men. And some of them had been in prison. They started studying while they were in the military, and they decided they wanted out, and they had to do a year or two in prison.
Yeah.
It was crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, one more thing. I did my first military eulogy. I was invited to my friend, one of my best friends died a couple of weeks ago, and I was asked to speak. And my wife said, "Darn, that was the best speaking you've done since you left Watchtower." But I'm not going to make a profession out of it, though. I'm not going to do it for money, okay? But at the same time, it was a privilege out of the blue that the family would ask me to do that, you know?
Oh, that's sweet.
And that's my comment. I don't begrudge anyone for going to the military. What the hell, Cornelius, he would have been executed. He was still in the military after Peter converted him.
Yep.
They didn't just walk out of the military as a centurion. Give me a break.
Yeah. Well, you know, I know King of Dutch, you're the same age I am, and I grew up with 4 older brothers.
No, I'm 70. My wife's 71 and I'm 70.
Yeah, you're 70. I just turned 71.
Hold on for my last 3 months. I'm holding on to those last 2 months. Okay?
Yeah, well, we're pretty close to the same age is what I'm trying to say. So we grew up with the Vietnam era. I had 4 older brothers. Now I'm down to 3. And the Vietnam War was really, really scary, really scary. And, you know, boys were drafted during that time. It stopped in what, 72, Rich?
71, I think.
71. Okay. It stopped in 73 and 71. But, you know, you were drafted. You were definitely. And Rich, he loved it so much, he wanted to put 20 years in. And the reason why he didn't is because his sister started studying with the JWs. But, you know, I said to Rich, I said, the average age of the young men going into the Vietnam War, they were babies. Let me tell you, they were teenagers. They were 19. 19 was the average age, 19. And Rich won't talk about the stories, but he was out there in the jungle with those bamboo viper snakes. Okay, not just the Viet Cong, but these bamboo vipers were not. Look it up on Google. You got bit by one of them, you had 2 steps and you were dead. Okay, and he had to sleep out in the jungle with all them. And also, pythons or boa constrictors?
Both.
And then he went to the Watchtower jungle. Come on, you didn't.
Yeah. Well, you know, and he saw a lot. Rich saw a lot. There were men all around him that were blown to pieces, and he survived. And I honestly have said I really think God had his hand of protection on Rich. So the Vietnam War was nothing to mess around with. And then when the boys did come back, people were saying baby killers and all that, right, Rich?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
You
So
call him Rich, apparently. I thought he was Dick. You call him Rich?
I call him Rich. He's my Richard. Yeah.
Rich?
Yeah, I call him Rich.
Richard, not Dick. I mean,
No, I don't like that name.
They say he's Dick Borghi, but you call
No,
him
it's
Rich.
okay.
yourself.
Guys can call him that. I don't like calling him that. So
Let's get that changed tonight, okay?
yeah.
Let's get Rich out there.
So anyway, the Vietnam
But,
boy,
I
you're
will tell you
you're a handful tonight, King of Dots. I can't even get a word in edgewise. But anyway, the Vietnam War was nothing to mess around with. So I'm just grateful Rich has made it. If he had put 20 years in, you know, who knows, Rich? He would have been deployed somewhere else and might not would have made it. You know, you just never know.
I probably would have been retired at 38 years old.
Yeah.
Going to the Army.
Let me tell you.
My dad, my 89-year-old dad, he's 93 now, like 4 years ago, asked me,
Yeah.
why didn't you want to go in the Army, Gary? That's my name, not King of Dots. And I said, Vietnam, Dad. And he said, oh, yeah. He never even thought of it. Never gave it a second thought. Vietnam was nothing to people who had been in the Army, even though my dad claimed to have post-traumatic stress syndrome of being in the military. What's that all about? I don't know. All I know is I only had like one conversation with him in 18 years growing up.
Yeah.
Now since he's old, I've had like 5, so
Yeah.
I'm doing good, man.
Well, Rick Farron has a father who's a Marine, and he's 103. Let me tell you, you got to be really tough to be a Marine. There's no being a pussy being a Marine. Okay. That's no joke. You might be out on a boat in the Navy and so when you're a Marine boy, you have to know how to kill and to be very accurate at it. There's no joking around.
How do we define pussy in this context?
Okay, well, we're not going to go there. Boy, I don't know if you've had anything to drink tonight, but you're too much tonight. Okay, anybody else would like to call in?
Star 6.
I've always been a pacifist. That's the point. That's why I was I'm a total pacifist. And, once I realized they eat pacifists alive in Watchtower, I started getting on the offense, okay? And I'm still on the offense.
Yeah.
You can't be your true self in Watchtower,
Yeah. I know. How long were you in King of Dots? How long were you in the org?
In the organization, 76 to 2004, 5, something like that.
That's a long time.
I have to look at my book bag at the magazines I left in there. It's in my closet, and I'll pull it out. Yeah, it was probably 2004. Yeah.
It was a long time. Yeah. Well, we're glad you're out.
But I want to say a little bit.
Rich, and are you there?
Well, let
Yes.
other people talk. I'll talk to
Yeah.
you all later.
Thank you. Thank you for chiming in. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Hello, Rich and Connie, and also Gary there. This is Matthew from South Africa.
Hi, Matthew.
Matt.
Welcome. Hi.
Good to be with you.
Thank you, honey.
I was associated for decades, and it certainly wasn't an easy exit. I had to be booted out when a liability was presented, so it makes recovery very messy.
Mhm.
But where you captured interest and where I thought Gary had some good points, he was talking about pushing back practically.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to Dick or Rich talking about the 2-witness rule when it comes to a leader that does the alleged dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it works 2 ways. But I realize this is a work in progress. But they cannot control the narrative when they have allegedly broken the law, because what they try to do is they try to isolate an individual, and then the congregation gets scared, so you don't have a witness that can stand by with you.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens, I was just wondering, on a practical level, you can actually use how they use Matthew 18:15-35 to make a record, or if you're in a jurisdiction or a legal place where that's problematic, you can still transcribe. You can still transcribe, or you can still make a record. You just need to make sure what's legal, and then you can present that to police or to your enforcement agencies or to your civil agents. But very often persons are disenfranchised, so you can't go and make a civil case. But I was just thinking if we can maybe streamline that to help people. I don't know if that's going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten mad about this before because it makes me sad and mad. The parent needs to take the child to the police station or the ER as soon as possible with the garments unbathed to get what is called evidence.
Right. Right.
And I learned this as a reporter, and I know it's a fact, and it's a very sad thing to talk about, but that's what the parent or the abused woman needs to do.
Right.
And when the orders are called first,
Okay,
then
but
it's
there's
in the way of
also
evidence.
what involves CA, Pixie.
Excuse me?
That's a very valid point, Pixie, but there's other cases that aren't always CA related.
Yes,
also
that's true. Other abuses, yes. But
There's
but
also
the,
other,
but the way they have set it up, time is of the essence to get the evidence.
Right.
The natural desire would be get a bath, and they're going against the procedure that helps to put the perpetrator in the jailhouse.
Right. They have to do a rape kit in the emergency room.
That's
That's what they
correct.
do.
That's correct. That's
Mhm.
correct.
Mhm. You take a shower, then you've just, lost the evidence. Mm-hmm.
That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And it's hard to talk about, but that's the facts. And so many of these people are not prosecuted because of this lack of evidence. Simple as that.
So Pixie, here's something else to build upon your framework, because the JW system says that they won't deal with these things if somebody's been ejected from the religion. So they pull the freedom of religion card, and that seems to create an impasse with enforcement agents and civil lawyers that could represent the person and make the necessary pushback in litigation. But we're just thinking about, look, if time, which is very, very critical and very, very sensitive, if that is often the case, because you can have a vulnerable person that doesn't come forward in time, and these things slip through the cracks. What I'm thinking is pushing back on this two-witness rule. You can create things through written evidence and through recording. You can do that. And if you come back to the congregation, the statute of limitations reset. There's a reset. Because if they do not allow you into the congregation, you can still record that. You can say, why are you not allowing into the congregation? I have a right to freedom of worship. And as distasteful as this may be to many in the audience, you can say, I have a right to be a genuine Jehovah's Witness as long as I don't have harm and as long as I'm safe. And it resets the statute of limitation. Look, I don't have all the answers, but I'm putting that forward.
Yeah. Well, it's very complex because they do have their own legal department and they do have their own procedure. And their procedure itself goes counter to the procedure of the community standard.
Right. The laws of the land.
I wonder why they don't just make the Jehovah's Witnesses become their own nation, because they act like such. And if the JWs are overriding American law by their laws, then they need to either be off our soil and on their own island somewhere.
Yeah.
Because they can't be overriding. They're sitting on U.S. soil, telling people that they can't vote, they can't do this, can't do that. You can't tell American citizens what they can and cannot do if that citizen is born in this country. That's taking away your rights, and that'd be like another nation taking away invading us and taking away your rights. They don't have the right to do that. They can't keep you from doing what you want to do. You have the right to live the way you choose, or whatever. But Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization, that's what they do. They steal your rights. They tell you can't go here, can't go there, can't talk about this, can't believe that, can't do this, can't do that. And they're destroying your rights as a human being. I mean, they take away your rights.
Yep.
They take away. That's why they use the two witness rule, because in that two witness rule thing with the CSA stuff, that's their way of getting around all that, because they know that you don't have a witness with a child sex abuse thing. There ain't nobody standing there watching somebody else be abused. But they say, well, you can have someone else that sees that, but they know nobody sees it. So that's why it allows them to shove that under the rug. But yeah, Watchtower needs, if they want to exist, they need to get off our soil They need to go on their own land somewhere and have at it.
Well, bro, I think you make a good.
Because they get property with a Lloydial title for that exact reason. That's why in Johannesburg it is the branch is looked at as the backup branch if anything happens in the United States, because it has a Lloydial title and they've got river rights that go all the way to the Limpopo and towards the East Sea, which comes out at Durban. So it encompasses all of that territory. It's very, very clever maneuvering, this alloidial title. It acts as a township, but you're correct on it. The other thing I wanted to mention, just to support you, was this matter of resetting the statute of limitations. If they refuse a person who's seeking justice access back into the JW system, it actually goes against their whole preaching campaign of saying, well, you can come into the system, practice freedom of religion and become a JW as long as you conform to our rules. So the justice seeker that is doing it for that motive can reset things. They can reset the statute of limitations, because if the congregation says, no, you're a liability because you're uncovering an abusive situation or a potential liability, then you now have that on record. You can go there with witness, or you can have it documented, which then resets that condition. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, there's one thing that you said that I thought made a lot of sense.
If you're going with backup, then you can be better prepared. It's not a perfect system, but it provides some kind of avenue for persons that are seeking justice for some of the rot that stays in place and is shielded by this international, legal entity.
Well, what were you going to say, Rich?
Well, the brother brought up.
Wait, let Rich say something. Hold on. Go ahead.
The brother brought up something about they should have their own government, their own island somewhere where they can. There's a scripture that says we obey God as ruler rather than man.
Mm-hmm.
So they come up and they say what they feel is the right rulings from their interpretation of the Bible. I'm thinking of in the Old Testament, if somebody was an adulterer, they would stone that person, or if somebody was a blasphemer, that person would be stoned. Well, why don't we take a disfellowship person who committed adultery, and why don't the elders take him out and dig a hole and put him in it and have the whole congregation stone him to death, because that's barbaric and it's against the law.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they're going to say, we obey God as ruler rather than men. That's why they don't go into the military, because, there was an opportunity to kill somebody. But what they forget is during C.T. Russell's time, you could go into the military and it was encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
In C.T. Russell's time, they saluted the flag.
Oh, yeah.
They celebrated Christmas.
Yeah.
This organization changes its mores, their standards, their doctrine all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have you believe that our Heavenly Father's Holy Spirit is directing the organization. Well, if it were, there would never be a need for new light. There would never be a need for changing things.
Well, and you wouldn't have all the pedophiles in the organization either.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have pedophiles because, right now, if, like with me, they announce to the congregation that I'm disfellowship. Okay, fine. I admitted to adultery. I didn't get caught, but I admitted to it, so they disfellowship me. But they keep 5 pedophiles in the congregation that nobody knows about. And, I'm sitting, my 8-year-old boy tells me, Daddy, I have to go to the bathroom. Yeah, go ahead and go. He doesn't, he goes to the Kingdom Hall bathroom, and he could be molested there.
Right, because you didn't know about
I didn't know there
pedophiles.
was, I assumed there
at
wasn't
that
any.
time. Right, we never heard about that.
Never heard about anybody.
And the other thing I was going to say is, Gary Bro's the circuit over, so you've seen him on JW.org. He's French, Breaux, Bro is how he spells his name. Anyway, and he said, we will never change the 2-witness rule, right? So just think about that. This organization will never ever change the two witness rule. The two witness rule is what they primarily use when there's any kind of sexual abuse for a child. I remember hearing about the two witness rule. I thought it had reference to, well, if a brother, stole something, you need to have two witnesses, which I thought, okay, well, that makes sense, right? But the thing is, who would have known that there were all these child sexual abuse cases going on in an organization? They kept it really quiet. They still do. But, unless you start watching the Australia Royal Commission or whatever. So if they are, just think about this. This is an organization that claims to be very godly. The channel of communication, the only channel of communication that Jehovah God uses to speak to its people, that's BS. The thing is, they will never change the two witness rule. That is, so if a child is sexually assaulted, raped, molested, you name it, by a perpetrator, by a pedophile, unless there is another witness, then, that person, that child has no protection. And the organization, meaning the elders, they are not going to, for the most part, report it to the police. So that perpetrator, the organization,
Let her finish.
yeah, let me finish. Pixie. No, let me
Let her
finish.
finish.
What happens is that this organization is brainwashed to be absolutely loyal to the institution, to the governing body, to the corporation of Watchtower over protecting that child. And that is never going to change. And I think that's what's going to bring Watchtower down, because that is not scriptural. That's their twist. That's their twist on the scripture. There's nothing godly about protecting a pedophile. These children are destroyed for life unless they get some serious counseling. Okay. And many of them commit suicide. Okay. So let's get real here. This is really serious.
And I'm going to throw the Old Testament at them along with the law book, because if they have the rape kit, that's one witness. It's a scientific witness of evidence.
Yep.
If they have the story of the boy, girl, or woman who has been harmed, that's the second witness. And I rest my case.
Well,
Well,
if I
that's
could
cool.
allow, I'm one of the first of the nation's cybercrime instructors. I'm a generational Jehovah's Witness and placed my first magazine 65 years ago when I was a kid. And I reported one of the first documented cases of 1977 of an elder molesting the children of two different elders. And I reported it, and they covered it up. So what I did, I went on a quest, and I'm an expert in cybercrime and pedophile investigations. Let me give you an update. 4 states have now declared the death penalty for anybody raping a child 13 to 12 under.
They should.
Good.
That's really
Bill that we're working on, excuse me, ma'am, the bill we're working on is going to go through Congress, and that's going to bring it to the Supreme Court, and the appeal is going to be Louisiana versus Kentucky. Now, what we're trying to do behind the scene is get this law passed. It'll go to the Supreme Court. But to be successful, we've got to add 5, 10, 15 years to elders who cover it up. That's going to bring this system crashing down inside the organization. And it's being worked on hard by people like me to make that happen. Justice is coming. And if they want to work with the government like they did with COVID, they'll work with them and help turn in these people so they can be shot by a firing squad. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that comment. It was well said, and you get a lot of passion in your voice. You're absolutely correct. These people, I wouldn't shoot them. I put them in an electric chair. I think that'd hurt more. But yeah, these people deserve to die. And if you're covering up for it, you deserve it too.
that's even worse.
Yeah, because you cover up one pedophile, and he gets away with it in his congregation. He's going to go to another child.
Of course
He's going to keep on, because he can't stop himself.
Right.
He's like an alcoholic.
Right.
He has to have the next drink, or a drug addict has to have the next shot or whatever. these people can't stop. There's really no history of anybody who was a pedophile, and then he stops. That desire is always going to be there. He's going to have that demon in his brain all his life.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we saw the movie Sound of Freedom, which I'm sure many of you have seen. If you get a chance, watch it. It is very well done. You don't have to, it's not showing anything graphic or gory, but you really get the point. Jim Caviezel, who's the one that played Christ in The Passion of Christ, was the main character. It was an excellent movie, wasn't it, Rich?
Fantastic.
It's based on a true story, and it was a child that was in Honduras, and what he did in order to go back to Honduras and catch the child and bring her back. But anyway, it was really moving. And the thing is, what I'm trying to say is it's the number one industry. What was it, Rich? Billions and billions and billions of dollars on pedophilia rings. And
Absolutely.
It's bigger than the drug cartels.
More money spent on that.
And
you
then
get some sick people out there. I'm sorry.
No, honey, I'm sorry. The other thing too, I just have to say this, it's not just sexually abusing these children, okay? But then
Sure.
after they're done, they kill them and they harvest their organs, which is another big industry, okay? So don't tell me that this is not an issue with the children. What about all those children in Maui when there's the big fire and they just disappeared? Or what about when the illegals came in? How many, Rich? 3,000 kids just coming over across the
350,000 children are missing.
coming over the border
They're
with
missing,
no one.
300.
They're just children.
They're being raped. They're being tortured. We get some sick people in this world.
Very demonic.
And you're
Very
going to see,
demonic.
as they get into
Pure evil.
the Epstein stuff, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, and you're going to see how it's connected with the upper echelon of the governments, not just the United States,
Right.
but throughout the world. They've got this pedophile ring,
Yep.
and there's they're connecting the dots to the pedophile ring to Jeffrey Epstein, to the United States government, and to the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Johnny the Bethelite told us years ago, but before they murdered him, at least that's my opinion, that there was a lot of sex trafficking going on with the governing body. That's what he told Rick. He told us all that. So it's out there. It kind of really bothers me. We have a woman, I guess she's 84 years old, and she was kidnapped, I guess. And her daughter is a very prominent newscaster.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's involved. They're talking about that day and night, right?
Yeah, every day.
But the 350,000 children that are missing, nobody mentions it.
Well, they have these tunnels. They have these children go down in these tunnels where who would think that, you take a child down in a tunnel, right? Now, I have heard this, and I know it's from a reliable source. You see the Walmarts, those super stores, the Walmarts. Mm-hmm. Well, for some of them, there are tunnels underneath, okay? And they do a lot of horrible things there. Now, guess who else had tunnels, Rich?
The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in Bethel.
In New York.
In New York.
Did you know that, where 25 Columbia Heights is?
They're all hooked up in tunnels.
Tunnels. And Mark Palo, who was a close friend, he's deceased now, of Rich's and then also Rick's, he was taken down in one of those tunnels with Leo Greenlees, who had been a governing body member, and he raped him.
He was only 10 years old. When Mark told me that, I didn't believe him. And
it's hard to believe, huh?
It's
Rich?
hard.
It's very hard to
Rick
believe.
also told me, he said the governing body joined the United Nations. And I thought, they would never do that. Where'd you get that information from? Comes to find out, it's absolutely true. I figured if the Jehovah's Witnesses found out the governing body had membership as an NGO,
But get back to Mark Palo, honey.
what
Mark had told
as an
you.
NGO, they'd all leave, but they didn't.
But
Mark Palo told me, we were drinking one time, and he said, I was raped by a governing body member. And I said, sure, Mark, I believe you, but I didn't.
It's like
But now
it's
I
like,
do. It's too bizarre to believe.
yeah, yeah.
It's hard to
It's the
believe.
image. It's the image, Rich.
There are
It's the image.
350,000 children that are missing. Do you know the anguish the parents must go
Oh
through?
my God.
I tell you, one time when
Oh,
I had my two boys, I'm
God,
thinking
Rich.
they're 6 and 3 at the time,
Mhm.
and we're walking along the ocean,
Oh, this is a good story.
along the coast.
You'll like this story.
And, I'm talking to both, and Danny got my attention.
What's their ages, Rich? Tell them the ages,
I'm
just
thinking
roughly.
6 and 3.
Okay, they're little ones.
Right.
Yeah.
And because we had a rip current at Hampton Beach, but you have to know where it is. We were going by it, and I'm talking to Danny, and Stephen saw this puppy that was behind an umbrella. And I look around, and he's not there.
He's there, and all of a sudden he's gone.
It's in a panic. I'm looking in the ocean, and did he get dragged out? And that feeling is horrible. It didn't take me 2 or 3 minutes to find him. I'm screaming, Dan, Stephen, where are you? And he comes out from behind the umbrella
Oh,
that was planted in the ground.
you couldn't see him.
I couldn't see him. Do you know what these parents
Oh,
are
my word.
feeling when their child is missing, thinking that their child could be being tortured or raped or whatever? Nobody talks about it.
Mhm.
Nobody talks about it, but they're talking about this. It's unfortunate she got kidnapped, I guess.
Yeah.
And,
Got 3.
yeah,
It's
and
very
my heart
sad.
goes out to her and
Sure,
her family.
sure it does.
But that's one woman,
Right, right.
84-year-old woman too.
But the children,
350,000 children are missing in this country alone, and they're being trafficked.
oh, it's
And
a
how does
big
Epstein
business.
get to be a multi-billionaire?
Yeah.
He didn't even finish graduating from college.
Well, and the thing is that, we just had the Super Bowl, right? What was that,
Mhm.
February, Rich?
February 3rd.
Just had it, right?
Mhm.
Did you know that the Super Bowl is the #1 event that's the highest where all the human trafficking takes place? They do all their networking, and it's all going on at the Super Bowl, at the big Super Bowl. Everybody's sitting there watching the game thing. They're having a wonderful time. And these young girls, and probably boys too as well, are being exploited sexually on the dark web. And they're there making the exchanges for the money for the person that's going to be their handler, I guess is the term, huh, Rich? I don't know. These children, and got to tell you this. Have you ever seen this? They have this sign, goes like this. Have you ever seen that? Like this. So if you ever see someone and they're going like this, that means, please help me. I'm with somebody who is very unsafe and I need your help. And so that can happen on an airplane, happen on a train, in an airport, or whatever. That's the signal, like this, which I think is incredible. It's like that. They'll do it like behind their back or on their side, and the person, maybe the guy is there, and it's a young girl, and they're trying to give a signal.
Give one brief point.
What's that?
You had a friend a couple of minutes ago who's a relative of Isaac Newton. I don't know if you recall, that's what he said. I looked up Isaac Newton because of that caller on your place, and I found out that Newton made an end of the world prediction, 2060. I mean, that's how much is into everything logically. So I just want to alert the audience. The Catholic prophets say it's 2034, by the way. I've known that for like 25 years from my parents, but Newton says it's 2060. So, I'm just going to say, keep that in mind. I'm not into false predictions, but it's information to meditate on, right?
Brother, just think of this. The Bible says, Jesus says that nobody knows the hour or the time of Armageddon. There's been thousands of people who brought a lot of prestige to themselves and said they know when Armageddon's coming, or they know when the end of the world is coming. Nobody knows. Jesus Christ doesn't know.
Only the Father.
Only the Father knows. So if you tell me 2060 or whatever, it means nothing to me. It's a little off topic. I'd like to.
Yeah.
You better be there if I call, Dick. You better be there, okay?
What's that?
He's
I'm
being-
out of here.
Yeah,
I
we're
said
talking
you
about,
better be there if I call in 2060, okay?
Yeah, I'll be around. I'll be in my Bermuda shorts having a margarita on the beach.
Well, the gentleman is true. And if you read in the Newton Project, Isaac Newton did project 2060 that would be the end.
that. I want to talk about what we were talking about.
However, there is going to be an end. This is my point. Dating it is probably a little ignorant. It's happened many, many times. But the Bible indicates there will be an end. Maybe not the way any human sees it. And just a comment on the two witness rule, if I may. Forensically, it's not necessary. It's totally inaccurate. If your child is raped and you dial 911 instead of the elders, the time clock is ticking. You have to have the forensics evidence like DNA. Then they got to seize the computer. They've got to look up and do network investigations, find out if there's child pornography on the scene, and then it also starts connecting to possibly other Jehovah's Witnesses who are pedophiles. It's a network. That's the way it works.
Right.
So the two witness rule in this case is absolutely foolish.
Right.
Mhm. Star 6, love to have somebody comment that's never commented before.
Yeah, we'd love
On
that.
6 screens. That would really make our
We
night.
would really, really love that. Don't be bashful. You don't even have to give your name. That's
Yep.
fine. And you don't even have to say, you don't have to talk for very long. We'd just love to hear from you. Be
Yeah,
awesome.
just your points.
Yeah,
you know.
what would you like to share?
Star 6, please. First time caller.
We know you're out there, huh, Rich?
Yeah.
We know there are new people listening. You don't have to be timid by any means. We're all one big family. We'd love to really hear what you have to say.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was trying to, this is Thomas Hodge from Lawrence, Kansas. I was just trying to give a new caller a chance. But anyway, yeah, I was just saying, sounds like there's some big time trouble in France. We'll probably hear about tonight on the conference call. I got a message from Barbara Anderson. I haven't had a chance to read it real close. I just noticed it as we was coming on. So sounds like they're really putting the hammer down on them over there. So I'm looking forward to reading over it closer and everything. And yeah, I think the old Watchtower is seeing its better days. I think we're going to see a lot more action taken by the governments. I just wish they'd get on board here in the United States and do what they need to do. I don't think they're doing near enough here. Seems like the foreign countries are really showing them up with all the things going on over there, trying to stop the shunning and the way they handle pedophilia, and then of course the blood doctrine, how so many people have died from that.
Mm.
So it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out as we move in the future here.
Well, thank you, Thomas.
I think their days are numbered. I really believe that.
Well, I think you're right.
It's so hard to get
Yeah,
through.
the writing is on the wall. The JWs that are in the congregations right now, they're all in their 70s and 80s. I mean, they're all and they're leaving. The young folk,
They don't want anything to do with it.
the young folk have access to
The internet.
internet,
Sure they do.
computers.
Sure.
The stuff's in the news.
Yeah.
I didn't know a lot when I became a Jehovah's Witness. There was a lot of things I didn't know. They never told me about disfellowshipping.
Oh,
There
no.
was nothing about pedophilia. There was nothing about false prophecies.
Oh, no.
You know,
Nothing.
there was none of that.
No.
There was none of that.
Right.
So it appeared to me, I wasn't very sophisticated.
Well, there was no
you know.
internet, Rich. I mean, the internet. So it's the information highway.
There you go.
The young kids, that's all they do. They get, which is wonderful. That's
The
why
young-
they don't want to get baptized. Or,
The young kids
leave.
aren't staying in.
right.
Another thing they're doing is, by their rules, they can appoint a person an elder at age 21.
Mm,
That is so. Even appointing a ministerial servant at 21
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
And that elder is expected to counsel a married couple who've been married 30 years if they're having problems. The one thing I'd like the audience to know is when I was going to the Methodist church, they had what is called life groups.
Mm.
And we had a really large church.
A lot of churches
and
have that now, Rich.
They do.
Yeah.
And they had different rooms. They had like 10 rooms in the church. In one room, if you had a problem with pornography, you would go there, you would get counseling, professional counseling. Everybody would talk about their problems. And it was, a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a gambling problem, they had that. Professional people that would come in and counsel. It wasn't just open to my church. We put it in the newspaper, and people from Catholic, Protestant, didn't matter. They wanted to come and get some help. We gave it to them.
Yeah, it's a 12-step program, right, Rich?
Yeah, well,
Like a 12-step
it's
or support
like
group.
a support group,
There you go.
really.
Yep.
And we had support groups if you were involved with drugs or alcohol, or we even had a support group for lust.
Yeah. That's a huge one.
We had it.
That's a
We had
huge one.
a group for people that couldn't tell the truth, lying.
Wow.
And we had professional people that graduated from seminary and had a degree in psychology and had written books. I chaired a life group on divorce care. I had to do a lot of training to get there,
Mm-hmm.
and I took the course 3 or 4 times before they gave me the reins of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned a lot. Jehovah's Witnesses don't learn anything. They learn
They don't have any
be
of that.
loyal to the congregation, be loyal to the governing body, and be submissive. That's what they learn. Loyalty, be
Right.
submissive,
Right.
don't ask any questions,
Right.
do what you're told.
And shut up.
I
Shut
can't
up.
wait to hear what happens in Norway. What's going to happen with them?
They're going to
Yeah.
get shut down.
A while back, I was thinking that, the Watchtower is losing a lot of elders and stuff.
Yep.
And one time I thought, if they lose all these elders, I wonder if they're going to start using sisters as elders.
I don't know about that. They don't think very highly of women in that organization.
No, I don't
I know
see that happening.
No,
I
but
guess
they're
in
getting
some
pretty
places,
desperate, though. They'll have they will have women for the microphones,
yeah,
right?
the microphones.
Yeah. But I don't think not in a leading or teaching capacity. They're too archaic.
But I'm anxious to see what's going on with Norway. I want to know what's happening with that.
Time will tell.
I really hope they totally lose that.
Yeah, time will tell. And the other countries too, Donald, are watching very closely. The European nations
Yeah.
are watching very closely what happens with this court case with the Supreme Court in Norway. Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, if Connie went back to the congregation, right,
Mm.
it would be conceivable that you would have a 21-year-old high school dropout counseling you, and you get a bachelor's degree and you graduated top in your class
Mhm.
from Notre Dame, and he would be expected to counsel you on something.
Yeah, I wouldn't go for that at all. I'd run circles around him, honey. You know that.
I mean,
Hey, may I butt in?
Yeah, please do.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you.
This is Dick and Connie, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
ahead.
I'd like to make a comment about what Dick said about Jehovah's Witnesses. They just follow what they're told to do,
Yeah.
and they give instructions, and it's true. That's exactly right. That's what they do.
Right.
But
Okay.
something I was thinking about was that way back in Rutherford's day,
Mhm.
he would send out his the Bible students or whatever they were called, Jehovah's Witnesses. He would send them out with a record player,
Yep.
and they would play the record
Mhm.
with Rutherford giving his
Coal
speech.
porters. They were
Mhm.
coal porters.
Yeah.
Coal
It was-
porters, honey. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right, and so that there was no personal. The Bible students they didn't interact verbally.
Right.
So if you look
Right.
at Jehovah's Witnesses today,
Mm-hmm.
they've kind of gone back to the same thing.
Yes, that's a good point.
The cartwheel.
Whenever I talk
JW.
to Jehovah's Witnesses, first thing they want to do is, they want to put your face in jw.org,
Right.
and even at the carts, they don't interact verbally anymore. So
That's
So
right.
that to me, that is a sign that they're really being verbally controlled.
Oh,
You
big
know,
time.
and
Big
anytime that I have a conversation with a Jehovah's Witness, which I do talk to them. I think they're very nice people, and I think they believe that they're doing what's right. You know, you can't put the blame on the brothers and sisters,
Right.
but
Sure.
every time I try to have a conversation with the Jehovah's Witness, you know, about biblical things, and I can take the simplest thing, you know, like the Matthew 24:45. That has nothing to do with Jesus assigning the governing body to give out spiritual food. It's about being on the watch for Jesus' return. There's several parables, you know, the thief that breaks in the house and stuff.
Right.
And anytime I try to talk to Jehovah's Witness, and you give them something that's just really simple,
Right.
that you can explain to them and ask them, well, can you show me what this is? They go into a panic.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to react verbally to it. They can't think, because all they do is they just follow JW.org or the Watchtower magazine, and you know, and things like that. But anyway, I wanted to make that comment. And
well, that's excellent, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Are you a first-time caller?
yeah, I am.
Yeah, I recognize. You know,
But he said he wanted a first-time caller. So
we love
thank
it.
you.
We love it. We really love it. Thank you so much. I was going to say,
you made my night.
you know, just to add your thought, brother, before you hang up there, you know, you never hear Watchtower ever say, or any of the brothers and sisters say, you know, look inside your Bible and do your research. The first thing they say is go on, like you said, at the carts, or even door to door, if they're still doing that, you know, jw.org. That means they're directing your attention to the organization and what the organization teaches about the Bible, their version of the Bible.
Right.
Okay. And not only that, but just to go. I was going to say, just to go back. Yeah, go ahead, honey. Go ahead. And then I'll finish my thought. Go ahead.
What I have found is that I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and it took me a very long time to get to clear my mind of what they taught you, because it all seems realistic. I mean, they use the Bible, you know, the end of the world. That's true. You know, Jesus returned to judge the living and the dead. That's all biblical truth.
Yeah.
But they take it and they use it and they put fear into you.
Oh, definitely.
And once they can put the fear in you, then they can control you. And then that's when they start to control you with their doctrine.
Right. That's very true.
You know, you know, they don't really. I'd have to say the last 10 years, I have been, you know, I was kind of lost. I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't know. Well, I even got to the point where I started thinking, you know, well, maybe this is just all a bunch of baloney. Maybe there isn't even a God. And I never really hung on to that thought, but it just kind of puts that thought in your mind, you know, because they tell you that all the other religions are false religions.
Right.
And then I started digging into all the other religions, and they all have a twist of the Bible that they teach. They all sing the Jesus song, and they talk about Jesus, but they all have their own twist on what the Bible teaches. So I started digging deeply into the Bible, and what I found was that the way that the Watchtower presents the teachings in the Bible, they only use little pieces of verses out of the Bible.
That's right.
And when you do that, when you take a verse out of context, you can create and make it sound like anything you want it to sound like.
That's exactly right.
And that's what they do. And that's what they do. And it's really a shame that, you know, I know some Jehovah's Witnesses, and man, I'm telling you, it's like, you know, I think to myself, you know, how could they possibly believe this, you know, of what they telling, of what they being taught? Like the thing about, you know, be ready to obey even what they tell you doesn't make any sense, you know. Right. And
That's right.
I mean,
Remember they
that
said
right
that?
there
Yeah.
should tell you
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. And so,
Right.
you know, I think the reason why they came out with the article in the Watchtower about be willing to believe and trust in what we say, no matter how ridiculous it sounds. I think is that because they're covering up their foolishness. The thing about the overlapping generation, you see, that makes no sense. So they want you just to go along with it.
That's right.
So,
We totally agree with that. Yeah. It's a very true statement.
And so, you know, it's like you know, I listen to Rick Farron's the JW you know
World
news.
News. Yeah.
And I'll watch y'all program too.
Oh,
And
thank you.
it just, you know, it just doesn't make any sense with this whole thing about and I'm not going to judge the witnesses because you know the Bible tells us not to judge anyone, but at the same time, you know, you have to be prudent. What does the Bible say about being prudent? You know, the prudent man is the one who's crowned with knowledge. And
Right.
prudent, the guy who's prudent, he's the one that's going to ask the questions. Well, show me this in the Bible. Show me where you got that.
That's right.
And the Watchtower doesn't want you to be prudent.
Right.
They want you to be naive and
They want
just,
you to be very
you know,
naive and gullible so they can control you. And as long as they can control you, they have your membership in your life, which means more money for them.
Yeah. They'll tell you be like the Bereavers,
Right.
but they don't want you to be like the Bereavers.
The Bereans. Yeah.
Bereans, yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
true.
tonight-
Well, I was going to say, brother, you know, it's,
the thing about when they don't want you to ask questions,
Right.
the fear thing that they throw on you is that they accuse you of being an apostate, and so that's the way that they control you. But I'd like to make another comment about the trafficking real quick before I hang up, because I don't want to take up all your time.
no, honey, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm from the New Orleans area, and this was some years ago. I don't remember how long ago it was, but of course, New Orleans is a big city that's into voodoo, and you know, they have I've hung around the French Quarter and been throughout New Orleans a lot in my younger days.
Yeah.
And they actually have people who have fangs put on, real fangs put on in their teeth, and they really believe that they practice being vampires. And I don't know what they do, but you know, they probably do the blood stuff. But it's a big voodoo thing. It's a big demonic city.
Yeah.
And there was I don't remember where it was, but there was the federal government had gone in and they busted one of these demonic religions, you know, these Satan churches. And what they were doing was they were breeding babies. They were getting the young girls and breeding them, having babies.
Wow.
And what they would do is they would heat up a metal plate, like a grill. They would throw the babies on the grill and burn them alive, cook them alive.
God.
Then they would drain the blood and they would put the blood in bottles, and they would carry the blood around with them in the bottle, and they would drink the blood.
Adrenochrome.
Get high off the blood because the blood, what is it?
It's called adrenochrome. Adrenochrome, honey.
Adrenaline. The blood would be full of adrenaline.
The adrenaline from the child.
Would get high.
Right, the baby.
Right.
But,
So there's a lot of this trafficking stuff going on, and you know, it's not just the Watchtower. It's not just you know. I mean, it's everywhere. It's all over the world. Europe,
in Hollywood. It's in Hollywood, honey, and they have parties with that. It's supposed to make them younger that drink the blood. Yeah, it's very satanic. They call it adrenochrome.
But anyway, I just want to thank you for giving me the time to speak. And I'll probably call back. I'd like to call back again, you know, maybe another show or something like that. But
yeah, well,
I got a lot to say.
Thank you. And before you leave, I just wanted to say this. I just wanted to say this is that, you know, back in the day, in the early 80s, back there in Bethel, you know, there were brothers and sisters. This was during the shakeup, you know, with regards to Ray Franz. Anyway, there were brothers and sisters who were Bethelites, and they were starting into questioning the governing body members and their teachings, and they just wanted to read their Bible. They didn't want to be necessarily looking at the publications or the Watchtower to decipher what the Bible taught. So there would be like a small group of them, and they were just reading their Bible and having a Bible study. Well, lo and behold, that word got out to the governing body members in Bethel, and those brothers and sisters were disfellowshipped for just reading their Bible without the Watchtower. Mm-hmm.
How sick.
Mm-hmm.
How sick.
Hello, brother from New Orleans.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Susan. Yeah.
I'm this thing about the blood is absolutely horrific. I have never heard of this, and I was wondering if you could. Oh, I can't believe it. My stomach is turning. Where did you get that information? Because I'd like to check it out.
I didn't get it off the line, off the computer. It's been years ago. I'd have to. I'm in my mid 60s, and I heard about it in when I was in my 30s. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like on CNN News, anything like that. But where I come from, around the South and around the New Orleans area, especially around the Bayou area, there's a lot of voodoo in those areas. People still practice that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And to think that to maybe say like, oh man, that's just a bunch of bull. That's a lie. They didn't do that. No, that's realistic things that demonic people do. And I don't remember where I heard it. It's been a long time ago. It was something with the federal government. I have a friend that was I don't talk to him anymore. This has been years ago. He was a special agent for the federal government, and I think it might have been something through him, because we used to all hang out and on Saturdays and drink a few drinks and talk and stuff, and he would always tell us, because he had retired. He would always tell us stuff that that nobody else knows, and he would always say, "Now don't repeat what I said," but that was a long time ago, and I think it might have came from him, but that's real. That's a real thing. I mean, with the babies, they put the baby alive, and of course, can you imagine that? And all the adrenaline is. All the adrenaline that's coming out of the baby, and it goes into the blood. Yeah. And then they use the blood as a drug. It's like an adrenaline high. Yeah. And those kind of things happen. I mean, that's real. That's real stuff that happens. And I know that the sex trafficking and the child abuse and all that seems pretty bad. But can you imagine what a baby goes through? Oh yeah. On a hot grill.
Well, they call this in Hollywood. In Hollywood, they call it. Type in adrenochrome, adrenochrome, adrenochrome. And not only that, but the thing is, it reminds you of in ancient times when those who worship Moloch, and they would take the baby and they would basically throw him in the fire. And as the baby's screaming, the drums are beating louder and louder. And the parents were misled, thinking that if they sacrificed their child to Moloch, because Yahweh said, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. But if you do, Moloch had taught the people, the Israelites, if you do that, then you will be able to be prosperous. Yeah. You'll be blessed and you'll be prosperous. And people were foolish enough to do that. And also, I just want to say this. I just learned this the other day. When it came to Jeffrey Epstein, he had a lot of different bank accounts, and he wouldn't say his name was Jeffrey Epstein. On one of his bank accounts, he identified himself as Moloch. His bank account was called Moloch, where you sacrifice the children. So anyway, we live in a very sick world, very, very sick, and we're definitely advocates for children's safety, whether they're in the Watchtower or not. And we're just really trying to, when you have a single mother, that's a tough road. You're trying to be a mother and a father, financially, emotionally, spiritually, everything else. And then you find these stupid, sick predators that are in the organization, came out of prison, and they're preying on a single sister that has kids. so that they can, abuse them. And the sister's thinking, oh, he's a wonderful elder.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so theocratic, or a ministerial servant, whatever the case is. And, they're looking for a meal ticket because they're struggling financially. But then, at what price? You're having your child as the sacrificial lamb. And if you don't believe it on top of that, then that's even worse. So we're just really trying to expose this, to people. And it is true. This is what's going on in Watchtower and other organizations too. The Boys Club, pedophiles have been around for
Oh yeah.
long
Boy
time.
Scouts,
Boy Scouts, any of them.
nothing that's been around for a
Daycare
long time.
centers.
No,
Can
Go
I
ahead,
make
brother.
another comment? Am I taking too much time?
No,
No,
honey,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
You just mentioned something about these guys that get out of prison and they go into the congregations and stuff, And if you think about it, when they leave those prisons, they never really leave that life behind.
Well, no,
They
they
always
don't.
have that.
That's
They
right.
always have that desire. I might be wrong. I'm not a psychologist, but they always have. It's like somebody who has done drugs. They quit doing drugs, but they always have that memory and that taste for that drug. And so, and I'm not saying all of them do, but there's a congregation over here where I live, and I've been going to it, and it's not because I want to go back to the Kingdom Hall. It's only because I'm almost at the point where I can just let it go. And I'm just trying to prove myself to myself, I want to go and actually see what they're doing nowadays. And I want to experience and speaking about the people from the prison, you can't just walk in the Kingdom Hall now. They have these bodyguards. They open the door and they question, well, who are you?
Wow.
And there's a guy he's at the door. He's a big guy, huge guy. He's got tattoos on his neck. And one of the guys in there, I asked him, I'm friends with him. And, he opened up to me. He said that, well, he's from prison and stuff. Well, every time, I don't go all the time, but the few times that I go, and again, I just want to repeat that, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not going back. I just want to see what's going on. I'm putting it all down in my notebook. I got about 3 or 4 notebooks full of notes. And, but every time I go there, this guy looks dangerous. He looks at me like he's about ready to jump me.
Wow.
And I mentioned to this guy that I know, and I said, this guy here he looks pretty dangerous. I said, why would y'all have those kind of people in your congregation? You don't know if they're going to flip out or what's going to happen. I said they might be totally fine, but they also could be a ticking bomb. So you're right about them bringing in, people from prison. And I'm not saying that people from prison are all bad. They're not bad people.
There are some people that reform.
They welcome
pedophilia is very difficult.
anybody into these congregations. But anyway, thanks for letting me have all this time.
You're so welcome. And one thing I just want to say too, I have to, Rich, is that okay? Okay.
Sure.
Rich and I were talking about, you had how many pedophiles in your
5.
Rich had 5 in his congregation. Okay. And Rich says something very interesting. I don't know, brother, if you had caught this, whether it's today or our other shows, but they know who the other pedophiles are. It's like they have a code among themselves.
They have a code.
Rich?
Yep.
Yeah. I thought that was very interesting.
I studied with a pedophile, and he told me that he knows who the other ones are, and he told me. The thing is interesting, you made a really good point. They're in prison. Very few men go into prison and don't get raped. And there is no females in the prison, so the sex that they have is with another man. So they become homosexuals. It's not a big jump to go from homosexuality to pedophilia. It's not a big jump. And if you've got a ministry going and you're out in service and your ministry is to the prison, right? If you can convince the parole board that you found Christ, you have much better chance of getting out.
Right. Definitely.
So they come in, they got a captive audience. These, let's say, ministerial servant goes to a prison. He gets caught in. They make sure they do a check on him, and he goes and he starts a Bible study with somebody,
in prison.
right? And then he comes to the parole board. I'm going to be a Jehovah's Witness.
I'm on good behavior.
Yeah, I'm
right?
good. So they
They're
let him
always watching
out.
the behavior.
He goes to the congregation. And he's been fooling around with other men. And maybe that's a tough road to hoe. I don't know.
Well, you don't have a choice when you're in prison.
You don't have a choice, but
Whether you're a man or a woman, you know.
you might be looking at children a lot differently.
When even the women, lesbianism is very common for women in prisons too. You don't have a choice. It's a totally different world. And what you're saying too with the men,
Yeah.
Rich. And then if you're a pedophile and you go to prison, oh boy, let me tell you, Bubba's going to take really good care of you. And you probably will be killed because they have their own code of ethics in prison, and that they do not allow pedophilia in the prisons. It's very interesting. Isn't that something?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
They kill
Somebody, yeah, they do kill them. Okay. Somebody else would like to say something?
Hey, Richard, Connie.
Yes?
Go ahead, sister.
No, it's a boy. It's a guy. Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Connie, this is Craig again from Florida.
Oh, yeah, Craig. Uh-huh.
Hi. I just wanted to add on to my prior comment prior. When I was going through the choices of my leaving after 35 years, I read Ray France's book, Crisis of Conscience, in my living room. And it actually brought, I'm going to confess, tears to my eyes. So much so that I reached out to find who is this author, Ray, of the governing body. And I got a chance to meet Ray and Cynthia. And I flew to Georgia. We spent the day together. And Ray's book, Crisis of Conscience and In Search of Christian Freedom, exposes the inner workings of the Jehovah's Witness cult or religion. Anybody that has doubts or is on the borderline of, should I leave? Is this the truth? Read those books.
Yeah.
It's not from a disgruntled employee or a follower. Ray had faith and Cynthia in God. They loved God. They did not speak disparagingly of members of the governing body or whatever. But if you have questions of your faith, is this the truth? The real truth? Read Conscience, Crisis of Conscience. It's available on Amazon. Read it. It changed my life. It reaffirmed my decision. It's like, I can only describe it as divine providence. I met Ray and Cynthia.
Wow, that's
And
interesting.
Crisis of Conscience, a book, reaffirmed my decision to leave the Jehovah's Witness religion.
Well, he gives you the inner workings of the organization, how it really worked. The brothers in Malawi were sisters were raped and persecuted because of their neutrality.
Yep.
Okay, but then yet the brothers that were in Mexico, it was okay for them to do that, and they were fine. Okay.
Absolutely. I was 8 years old when I remember the congregation saying, write letters to the government of Malawi for not buying like a 25-cent political card.
That's right.
In Mexico, they could buy their way out of joining the military. What hypocrisy.
And you know, Craig, I cried when I read that part of the book.
Read Crisis of Conscience.
Yeah. I cried when I got to that part of the book. So what, the brothers and sisters in Malawi are less humans than somebody who's in
Right.
Mexico. I mean, Jesus died for everybody,
They,
right? Mm-hmm.
the women were raped
And killed. The brothers were killed too.
and killed.
They were killed. Remember Teresa Graves from
I
Laughing?
beg all the listeners to buy Crisis of Conscience. Buy it. I beg you.
Yeah. Teresa Graves used to be on Laughing, and she, in around 72, she was doing
from New Jersey. She was from New Jersey. I knew her relative.
Oh, wow. She was doing writing the letters to Malawi and trying to be supportive. I remember that. She came on the air and talked. I remember exactly where I was listening to her. I remember exactly where I was when I was listening to her on the radio talking about the brothers and sisters in Malawi. Yeah. I remember that very well.
Hello, Malawians here, so I
Thank
can
you,
give you
Greg.
those
Thank
stories.
you.
I crossed those rivers myself.
Yeah.
I can absolutely tell you the Malawian story firsthand. So yes, they were fed to the crocodiles, basically. I mean,
Fed to the crocodiles? Did you say they were fed to the crocodiles, Matthew?
yes. I don't mind that going on record. I'll stand by that.
Wow.
Hello, Rich, Connie.
Connie,
Good.
the other
Hey,
thing
Joe.
too was your Epstein connection.
Wow.
You were talking about Molech. So the one account at the branch in South Africa, I don't know if you're familiar with Husqvarna in the United States. So the account on the Admin 2000 system for Watchtower was 666. When I brought it to leadership attention, they refused to change it. The other thing too with Epstein's music pavilion, which is known as the Blue Temple, when we traced it, its design language, not its architectural language, but its design language, we traced it to the Hammam Yalbuga. I'll spell it HAMMAMYALBUGHA. It's in Aleppo, Syria, and it was built in 1491 by the Emir of Aleppo, Saif ad-Din Yalbuga al-Nasiri. So it's located next to the entrance of the citadel of Aleppo. So there's your connection to your Molech worship that you were mentioning. So I thought I'd give you that give you that reference that you might feel is useful, and also the 666 reference. I don't mind that being on record because it's completely traceable if they ever do a data audit.
Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Do you want to wrap up, Rich?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can take one last call if it's short. One last quick comment from anybody?
We really thank you, everyone, for listening to the show and your comments. We just love it. It's not just about Rich and I talking. We'd like to hear your thoughts too. But Jerry, our show runs till 8 and it's almost 10 after. If you have a short comment, we'd love to hear from you. We really would. We come on every 2 weeks. So this would be your last chance for this show to say something.
All right. We thank everybody. We'll say God bless. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and take really, really good care of yourself.
Yes. We love you. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Hopefully you learned something very beneficial. Share the show with others too as well.
Okay, Rick, you're up.
Well, very good, Dick and Constance. Lots of people coming in here tonight. I see things happening here at the 6 Screens. We're getting way more people coming in than just a few months ago. You folks are doing really well, Connie and Dick. You're getting a lot of new callers, a lot of people listening in. I see the computer screen here. I see all the people calling in from all over the world. Of course, many of them don't want to speak up, but we do appreciate that man coming in tonight and speaking up for the first time on the 6 Screens. It's kind of hard for people, as you know. When a lot of people getting on the Watchtower, they have reasons not to, let other people know they're listening into an apostate program. We know what can happen to them, but for those that can do it, and there's extenuating reasons why you can't do it. But boy, if you can call into the 6 Screens, it means a lot to other people listening. They listen intently to new
Oh.
people and telling their stories. So we appreciate all of those that called into the program tonight. Thank you, Dick and Constance.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Well, we've got a number of programming. So we got 2 more programs coming up tonight. You'll want to stay with us. We have, of course, JW World News. That's coming up next. We get some good things to talk about. I'm going to kind of bring you up to speed on some of the things I've been hearing about the Epstein files. I think you'll find that fascinating. And of course, war. We are now at war. America's at war today with Iran. Well, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to see what the witnesses are saying about it. So by all means, and another thing we're going to discuss is, it is getting way too dangerous to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses today. They are getting bumped off like crazy. And wait till you hear this story out of Germany this week. 3 more witnesses were attacked during cart witnessing. We're going to talk about this. This is serious, friends. So stay with us for JW World News. That's coming up next. And it's on the same YouTube channel, same Facebook channel, as well as on our radio telephone network. So hang in with us. We're going to end it here. And we'll see you in about 2 minutes on JW World News. So let's end that right now.